Thank God I get people on here with some common sense and knows what the hell they're talking about. Get this. Before I gotta, you know what? Before I do this right now, I had to have a proper introduction for the man, the myth, the legend, who's made millions of dollars this year for all of his people. This guy now has bought a 70-foot yacht that now sits in Chesapeake Bay. He now has a townhouse down on Broad Street overlooking all you minions and all you peasants because of all the things that he's tried helping you do. He's paid more mortgages this year than Joe Biden has. Ladies and gentlemen, our friend, Philly Godfather.
The only thing I haven't done is pay off the college debt.
That's right. Joe Biden wants to forgive debt. Godfather paid it with one stroke of a check. We wrote off all the debt here. So before we get into the conference championship games this weekend, I have to get your take on the Liars Club on Wednesday, or that thing we saw, what I call the fireside chat that you had there with those two clowns. I mean, Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman. I call Howie Roseman the banker, and I called Nick Pinocchio. That's what Angelo and I called him. I have to get your take on what you saw with that thing.
I didn't watch it. You know why I didn't watch it, Dan? Because I already know what's going on. Like, what are they going to lie to me right to my face and start stuttering when they start talking? And I mean, I'm big on pantomimes, and you can tell a lot about a person whether he's telling the truth or he's lying with the little, mannerisms in his face. I guarantee if I go back and watch Sirianni's face, there's a million of them. So there's no. I already know what's going on. You know what I mean? He's a yes man, and that's all it is. Thank God they picked up an adult, Vic Fangio. But again, he's had success. He's had failures in this league. But if he don't have the horses, if he don't have the talent on the field, it don't matter. He can't help the team. They're going to have to bring in a bunch of talent next year, because if Kelsey leaves, they can't sign a bunch of defensive players. They don't have enough money. It's going to be an issue. And it's indicated the odds makers in Vegas have made them the 13th favorite to win next year's Super Bowl. So there's 12 teams ahead of them.
What were they? Give context. What were they this year?
Top 4 early in the season before the
season. So they've
started.
gone down to 13 now.
13, and they might get worse. So that's a clear indicator to me that the people with the big money that back their opinions with hundreds of millions of dollars think the Eagles are going this way.
I told Angelo this team in 2 years will be a 5-win team.
I don't know about that, because I think Lurie really cares about the team. And like we said last week, love them or hate them, they've been competitive. But that NFC East is going to get tougher and tougher. Other teams are going to get better and better. They're going to have to draft the right way. And Harry Roseman has had a problem in the draft. He's trying to, put together, players and Band-Aids, and, it didn't work out this season. But below 500, possibility.
I want to show you what some idiots actually think, because one of the reasons they brought him back, they said that Nick Sirianni has a 667 win percentage, and he's been to the playoffs 3 years in a row. And he said that, how can you fire a guy like that? And I said, well, that's like taking this into consideration. Bear with me here. Godfather, check this out. Chip Kelly has a higher win percentage than Doug Peterson, Buddy Ryan, and Dick Vermeil. I don't think anybody that's a Philadelphia Eagle historian or fan is sitting there writing Rich Kotai's name above Doug Peterson, Buddy Ryan, and Dick Vermeil as program builders when it came to wanting to be the head coach. According to some, they think because Sirianni's record. My point is this. I think he's overrated. I think that record is overrated. Okay? Because he's – what redeeming quality have you seen in him as a head coach that makes you go, now that is something he does great?
He baffled me for a couple of years with his record. I mean, and I kept saying –
I get it.
And they kept winning. And then this year, is it a true indication of how good of a coach he is or how bad of a coach he is? Probably more than likely, because everything didn't go right this year. And down the stretch, you saw what happened: 1-5, 1-6 with the playoff game, a negative 82-point differential in that time span. It was ugly. So, he's a yes man. All right, you're going to keep him around. If the season starts off slow or real bad, they're going to get rid of him. Let's be honest. But, we'll see what happens.
I just went through Jason Cole, but I want to get the man with the bag of money and his opinion on what he thinks these awards. I won't do them all. We'll get into some prop bets then, and then we'll get into the conference title games. But MVP came. The AP released their names for MVP. Lamar Jackson, McCaffrey, Dak, Brock Purdy, Allen. What's the money on who wins the league's most valuable player award?
I mean, Dak Prescott's got the best numbers out of any quarterback this season, but they were kind of fugazi. He padded his stats.
Now, remember, this is a regular season award. It's not anything to do with the postseason.
Right. He padded his stats against some, inferior teams. It could come down to Lamar or McCaffrey. It's probably those two guys.
Defensive Player of the Year, Deron Brand, Cowboys. Max Crosby, Raiders. Myles Garrett, Browns. Michael Parsons, Cowboys. TJ Watt, Steelers.
Wow. They're all great. I mean, how do you pick one? Myles Garrett had a monster season. Bland had all those interceptions for touchdowns.
6.
Yeah. I mean, then he got hurt towards the end of the season. Man, that's a tough one, man. Honestly, I wouldn't bet on, and they're just all, they're great options. I wouldn't bet on it, but
I would take Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I'd say Myles Garrett too
for the Browns here. Last one before then we'll get to the props here. By the way, one more time. I want to get it punctuated. You would take, if you had to start your team right now between Dak or Jalen, who are you taking?
I don't know, man. Dak's the better passer, but he's a choke artist. And I don't like.
Oh yeah, look at you. You're still. You sound like my guy Tone. You're still pissed off at him because he let you down, right? See, look at everybody. Look at Godfather here. He's pissed off at Dak now.
Yeah, it wasn't the first time. I mean, he's gotten brain cramps in key moments throughout his entire career. Now, there was 15 quarterbacks better than Jalen Hurts this season. And Jalen does have a great offensive line, more weapons than almost any other quarterback in the league. So for him to regress, that's not a good sign either. Honestly, if you get the right offensive coordinator in here, I'll take Jalen over Dak.
Very okay. There you go. Philly Godfather. Let's do now some props here. Now, I randomly wrote some names down here, so it's going to be both AFC and NFC guys. Then we'll get to the games here themselves. But so here we go. Brandon Ayuk, he's the healthier of the two. That's why I went with him. San Francisco, over under 79.5 yards.
That's a lot of passing, receiving yards. Detroit's pass defense, one of the worst in the NFL. Might be a little rain in that game. I don't know about the winds. I don't think it's going to be windy.
It's in Santa Clara. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know about the winds. Purdy hasn't impressed me against the Packers with his arm. Overthrew a bunch of guys. Didn't really look great. I think they're going to run more this week. 79.5. That's a lot. You got so many weapons. I say under.
Jamar Gibbs, Detroit. Longest run of the day, 14.5 yards.
Over. I like him, man. I'm going over in his all his props this week.
Dude, you know what? I actually love Bijan Robinson down in Atlanta, but I think he's been a little more impressive this year than what the kid in Atlanta's been.
He's been playing with a chip on his shoulder. There was this one hype video showing all the announcers saying what a bad pick it was for Detroit. They should have picked up Robinson instead. And who is this kid? And he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. I like that kid a lot. He's got an edge.
Travis Swift. Over under 5.5 catches. And I got to do this every time I say Travis Swift because, he throws little love buttons up now.
You can
And
do
he's
this
like
too.
this now to everything. So, yeah, Travis Swift, over under 5.5 catches.
Let me put the jab in real quick.
Yeah. Oh, my God, Mr. Vaccination.
I'd say they got to go over, or else they're going to get their asses handed to them. I'd say over 5.5. Go.
Travis Pfizer. Oh, man. Patrick Mahomes. Over under 4.5 rushing attempts.
Over. He's going to be running for his life. I went over 26.5 rushing yards. Their offensive lineman's out. They're facing one of the best pass rushes in the NFL, one of the best defenses. He tends to run more in the playoffs than he does during the regular season. He's going to have to make some things happen with his legs. I'd go over.
I'll tell you what, have you not been impressed with Aiden Hutchinson as a pro?
Not bad. Not bad
Dude,
at all.
You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of Howie Long a little bit. Like effort guy, strong, never stops, has a high-end motor. He got a little John Randall in him too.
Wow.
He's a high-end guy, man.
That's high praise. You talk about two great NFL players. That's a high praise for him. Yeah.
Zay Flowers, over under 4.5 catches for the Ravens in the AFC title game.
I went over 41.5 receiving yards. That's right there, 4.5. I say over.
Lamar Jackson, over under 63.5 rushing yards.
It just sounds too easy to go over. Don't it?
Hey, I don't know why I'm seeing. Yeah. Hey, wait a minute, right? Hey, wait a minute. When I see this I see this guy's stat line in this game. How come I see 175 passing yards and like 100 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns? I see that, and then on Mahomes is in. I see 300 passing yards, kind of something like that. I mean, am I wrong, or do you think that because I'll tell you, quite well, we'll get into the game, but I don't know if this is going to be as easy as a putt getting all those yards against that KC defense for Lamar.
Yeah, I'd rather him have less passing yards and more rushing yards, limit his mistakes, make sure no interceptions are thrown, because they can't afford to lose the turnover margin because Mahomes, Andy Reid, Spags, they're going to have a hell of a game plan. I don't think Mahomes is going to have a lot of yards passing because of what's going on with his offensive line. And if you look at the two defenses he's played in the playoffs, Miami and Buffalo, both were decimated with injuries on the defensive side of the ball. So their offensive metrics aren't as good as they look in the playoffs. And now you're playing a monster, the most complete team they've faced all season. The best defense the Chiefs have faced all season were the Patriots. They didn't face a top 10 defense all year. So their offense was inefficient during the regular season, and they won some games, but they were playing some of the worst defenses in the NFL. Now you're playing a team on paper that has the 5th best DVOA in NFL history. Now, metrically speaking, one of the best teams I've ever seen. The game's played on the field, but on that stat sheet, this is one of the better teams I've seen in a long time.
Jared Goff, over under 260.5 yards passing.
I went under 261.5 because of the issues on his offensive line. And even though the 49ers sack rate, I think they rank like 20th in the NFL, I think they're going to be bringing it because his tendency is to fold under pressure. And even though he's got the second best numbers of any quarterback in the league this season, with the injuries on his offensive line and with the game plan Shanahan's going to come up with, I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on him. And that's why I went under 261.5.
Brock Purdy, 274.5 passing yards.
There's so many monsters on that offense, and that pass defense for Detroit's one of the worst in the NFL. I mean, all their defensive metrics are in the basement of the NFL, except for stopping the run. They're ranked 5th in opponent yards per rush attempt. I think Purdy has a big day. I think he bounces back. And what was it, 270, you said?
274.5.
I go over. Yeah, the total's at 52 now, so they're expecting some points. Odds makers are in this game. I'd go over.
All right, let's do the games now. Kansas City in their sixth straight AFC title game. It's the first time they've been in a conference title game in the Mahomes era on the road. They just come off the Buffalo win. The Ravens, hosting the home game here. Actually, the Chiefs beat the Bills. The Ravens hosting the AFC Championship game. Andy Reid versus John Harbaugh. Mahomes versus Lamar Jackson. How do you see this puppy?
I think it's a blowout. Call me crazy. I'm going to be on another island here. I laid the money line minus 185. I laid the 3 on Baltimore. I laid minus 9.5 plus 200 on the Ravens. I'm expecting them to win by at least 10 points.
Wow.
I also put them in some teasers, and you're not supposed to tease through 0. I did it anyway because anytime I want to bury a side, I'll get down as much as I can. I could be wrong. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, greatness is so hard to quantify.
I know.
And I've talked about that with years with Tom Brady, and Mahomes is great. But this season, people think, he's still great under pressure, and he has been in his career. But this year, when he's been pressured, he's the 29th best quarterback in the NFL, and he's thrown the second most amount of interceptions. And that's because of the lack of the, wide receivers. And, other than Kelsey out there, there's guys dropping balls all day long. So, and now with, their offensive linemen out, that's just only going to get magnified. And, the Ravens defense, unless Lamar Jackson turns the ball over twice and they lose a turnover battle 2-0, I think this is a blowout. And, before the Texans game, I bet them 3-1 on my money for 10,000 that they would win the Super Bowl. So if the Ravens win the Super Bowl, I win another 30,000 on a $10,000 wager. And I'm not hedging. I'm so confident. I'm betting more this week. I'm double dipping on the Ravens. I don't think it's close.
How about this? There was something I heard. I think my guy Tone brought it up, or somebody did on our network, that the Ravens have beaten like 7 winning teams this year or something in a regular season where they have they've beaten them by double digits, where they've just blown teams out. I mean, that's insane to think that they have beaten that many teams like that. Here's the thing. Rob Ellis brought that crazy. They've beaten like 7 teams that had winning records by double digits. Like, I've never heard that before.
They blew out the 49ers at home.
At home, they destroyed them.
I think they were like 4 or 5 point dogs. They blew out the Detroit Lions. And in their only 3 losses, as I mentioned before in other shows this season, came when they had cluster injuries on both sides of the ball, or else this team might not have lost a game all year. Like, the Chiefs, they got a great coach, great defensive coach, great quarterback, but that talent on the field isn't even close to what the Ravens have. And I just don't, I'll be shocked if they lose this game. Like, I'll put my money in. Like, I've invested hours of research.
Like, there's going to have to be high turnovers for the Ravens to lose this thing.
Exactly. Or else they're not. They're going to blow this team. I can't see. Pacheco's banged up.
I think even a low-scoring game and a high-scoring game, believe it or not, favors the Ravens.
It could go either way. I mean, if it's a blowout, and you just keep scoring, and if Mahomes throws a couple picks, each turnover is worth about 3 points to the point spread. Each stop on 4th down is a turnover. So if you're going for it on 4th down, you don't get it. That's worth 3 points. That's considered a turnover as professional sports bettors. That's what we look at it as. Unless something crazy happens and they turn the ball over 2 or 3 times and the Chiefs don't, I think they roll on this team. Pacheco's banged up. Their offensive line's banged up. They can't stop the run. I think they're ranked 27th in the NFL at stopping the run, and that's what the Ravens do. They run the ball down your throat. Andrews is back. I mean, I don't see it. I don't see it for the Chiefs.
Here we go, NFC title game. Lions and 49ers. Jared Goff can become just the 7th player to take 2 different teams to Super Bowls in NFL history. You got a guy in Brock Purdy who's making $870,000 a year. Queasy Watkins on the Eagles makes more money than this guy does. It's remarkable that he's done what he's done. Get this, in the top 20 passers going into this game, Brock Purdy has attempted the least amount of passes, and he's third in NFL in passing yards, which shows you the efficiency that he has. Debo looks like he's going to play, depending on how many plays. I think Kyle Shanahan will cover some of the plays and the reps lost by Debo with McCaffrey in certain situations because he knows how to move them around. I think the Lions, by the way, the Lions got back Gardner Johnson, had a pick last week. That should help them in the secondary a little bit. I like both these teams going into this, but the Niners are at home. And after last year's disaster with Purdy getting hurt against the Eagles, how do you see this thing playing out?
Originally, the line opened up. The look-ahead line was San Fran minus 5.5. And then when he reopened the line, it was at 7. It went down to 6.5. Now it's shot up to as high as 7.5. So the public's all over Detroit here. I think like 65% of the money, the tickets being punched in Las Vegas, in Costa Rica, offshore, in Atlantic City, on the Detroit Lions. But the sharp money's on the 49ers here. I bet them a couple weeks ago to win the NFC conference. I laid 85 cents minus 185. This week, I put them in a bunch of teasers. I teased them down to a pick 'em from 7. You played football. The offensive line is so big, and if you're missing a key guy on that, it's hard, man, especially with a team like the 49ers that know how to scheme defensively. Those linebackers they got studs all over the field. Their offense is so efficient. They're at home. I'm hoping Detroit can hang around, but I'm leaning towards the 49ers. I mean, if you can lay 7, it's probably the right side. I tease them down to a pick.
Are you taking the 49ers and the points?
I'm not laying the points.
Okay.
I just like.
Would you take Detroit and the points in this? 7.5 is a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's like they're trying.
But do you think they could blow them out too?
Yeah, I think that could happen as well. I just hate being on the public side. You know, anytime you're on the side of the majority, you got to pause and reflect. Like, you got to pump your brakes. Why is everyone on this side? And usually they all get crushed. So if they can run the ball and they can stop the 49ers from running, because they do have the 5th best defense against the run, the Detroit Lions do, then they got a shot to stay within that number, you know. But with the pressure they're going to be bringing, I think I kind of like the 49ers here, man. I like the 49ers.
How about this little nugget here? You know, you look at what the Eagles went through this year, and you look at the Final Four teams. You got Kyle Shanahan calling offensive plays for the Niners. You got Steve Wilkes calling defensive plays. You've got that coordinator in Detroit that's going to get probably the Washington job. And you've got another defensive coordinator in Glenn, and who's being considered a candidate for head coaching jobs. Then you turn around on the other side, you got Reed, and you got Spagnuolo, and you got Monken, and you've got how the Ravens do business and their defensive side of the ball. I don't think there's any coincidence that you have great head coaches with great assistant coordinators and great coaching staffs that are also there around those great talented rosters. And that, to me, is probably one of the more disappointing things with the Eagles, is that they had a talented roster early in the year. That's why they were 10-1, but they didn't have a talented coaching staff. It didn't really match up this year, did it, Godfather? That the coaching staff never matched up with the roster and the talent, and that's why they won those 11 games.
And that's why there was so much inner fighting. I mean, eventually players stop believing in the system because it's not working. And it's like having a great business. You need a great CEO, a great regional manager, a great manager. You need a great team in order to be successful in any business. And they run that football team like a business. They got some of the best in key positions, in the coaching positions, and that's why they keep winning. I mean, those teams are, you know, who's got better coaches than the Chiefs, the Ravens, the 49ers? I mean, that's why they're always there consistently. You know?
Finally, what does the hiring when it comes to sports betting mean for the Chargers? when you put a guy like Jim Harbaugh in the building there, and it's not just that he's being put in and hired as a coach, he's also being put in control because there's no GM yet. You know, when a coach is hired before the GM's hired, that tells you what's going on. It was kind of like Doug getting the job. Balky came after. Okay, so in your opinion, what does he do for Herbert this coming 24 season? And what does he do for the Chargers when you're looking at them as a betting favorite going into the season? How much of an improvement does that make it? How much of a play, I should say, does that make Los Angeles when they go into the sports books in 2024?
Well, their futures before they got Harbaugh were around 30-1 to win the Super Bowl next year. Now they're down to 20-1. And by the time football season starts, they could be down to 10-1. They're going to be one of the top 4 or 5 favorites to win the Super Bowl next season because of Jim Harbaugh. And, I mean, the happiest guy in the world's got to be Justin Herbert. You know, who's happier than him? You know,
I would think that his odds at potentially winning the MVP award will also go up because you've got a guy that Harbaugh that knows how to move the ball around the room. And also, too, you know, I was telling people that look what the Spanos family did for Justin Herbert. They went out and got the most qualified coach they could possibly hire as a head coach and play caller. And the Eagles are still fumbling around trying to figure out Cliff Kingsbury, this guy, another retread guy. They got the hottest coach on the market for that guy. That's why I say this. I think Justin Herbert has a better year than Jalen because he's got better people around him.
I mean, he's the better quarterback, too. I mean, I think he's the much more elite quarterback than Jalen Hurts. And they did the right thing. They know they got one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So they went out and got one of the best coaches around. Now, maybe the Buffalo Bills should do the same thing.
Yeah, great call.
You know, it's time to get rid of, you know, McDermott had a shot.
Yeah.
I haven't liked him in years, and I like him even less after the last game against the Chiefs, the way he called that game. You got Josh Allen. You can't waste those prime years of that. Josh Allen's a monster. You got to go get somebody for him, you know?
I love that. I love that. That's a great call. Buffalo's on the hot seat right now. No question about it. Godfather, tell everybody in here, like everyone in here, how they can get a hold of your great takes and your great picks here on JAKIB, and also Sirius. You're all over the place. You're worldwide, like Jim McKay used to say, on Wide World of Sports. Philly Godfather spanning the globe.
First, I want to apologize for opening up a can of worms last week, and then the whole city ran with it. I kind of feel kind of bad, but yeah, you can follow me on Twitter.
You got a little scared. It's okay. You know, Big Sills is here for you, Biggin.
You can follow me on Twitter at Philly Godfather. You can stop by the website, thephillygodfather.com. And yeah, I'm here every Friday on the best show in the world, the Dan Sileo Show, man.
Hey, let me say this to you, man. You know we're relevant, man, when poor Barrett Brooks says something out of nowhere and all of a sudden he gets destroyed. I mean, I'm like, what? And get this. You know that thing's got over like 850,000 views on it now. And I was like, Sileo, you're such a liar. I'm like, I didn't say anything.
You know what the crazy part is? There's another 95% of information I could have released. I only released a little bit.
Oh, Sam, please.
I was holding back.
More to come. More to come. Godfather, thank you, my friend.
Have a great one, guys. Good luck and keep winning, Dan.
You got it, man. That's my friend, Philly Godfather. How you doing? Take a time out here. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.